Welcome back, everyone. We are back in the conference room. I got another juicy lecture for you today. Don't have a lot of time to get into it. Got a lot of topics to cover, so let's just get right into it. I wanted to say thanks again for tuning in. We had some foibles, some technical issues last week, some format changes. I'd like to incorporate more of those in the future, more time spent on post-production, the fancy editing tricks you saw. I'd like to do more of that. This week I just wanted to keep momentum moving. We are back, as you can see, in front of the whiteboard. We've got a few topics to cover today. The first of which starts with a pretty tragic story of a 12-year-old girl this week last week, live streamed her own suicide online. A young girl who I will not mention her name here for reasons I will go into, live streamed on her phone, her hanging herself. You can find it if you search up for it. I don't really recommend it, but as a father, as somebody who's dealt with suicide, depression, things like that, this is a pretty hot topic, a pretty close topic for me today. And what really is the big issue here, what I really want to touch on, is the outcry of support posthumously for this girl. Not that I am opposed to that in any way. I think it's absolutely tragic. The girl live streamed abuse, deplorable conditions that she lived in. She didn't really feel like she had anybody who could help her. She was being treated for depression, clearly not successfully, and as a result, this was the ultimate culmination of that. What I'm really getting upset about, I shouldn't even say upset, but what is really concerning to me is the outcry of support that we're seeing now is fundraiser campaigns, these hashtags, these, justice for the girl's name. And it was pretty well documented beforehand via her online journals and her online correspondences. She was blatantly, obviously crying for help the entire time. The only support she got was from other online communities of these other aching, hurting, broken people who clearly their support wasn't enough to pull her out of the slump she was in, pull her out of the deplorable conditions she was in, or bring any sort of justice to her then. Now that she's dead, we've got this outcry of guilt, this entitled sense that we can now posthumously clear our conscience, wipe the slate clean by donating some money to her cause, or now opening the investigation against her parents or where she lived at, with these huge, letter writing campaigns and online other campaigns and raising, awareness for these things. And as far as I know, teen suicide is nothing new. It is a pandemic problem, not just in our country, but across the globe. There are kids crying out for help that need some sort of outlet, some sort of mentor, some sort of fucking help. And they're not getting it. They're either being seen as spoiled, entitled little shits, or these weird, eccentric little, phases that kids go through. And my advice to you folks that feel guilty, that feel terrible about this, is to find a kid that needs help right now. Don't wait until after they hang themselves to start a hashtag campaign. You're not actually doing anything. If anything, you are turning back years of advice and putting the idea out there that suicide is the answer. Clearly, if this girl gets her justice now, if these fundraisers work and raise all this type of money, then obviously her sacrificing herself, her suicide, was the answer. That's not the message we're trying to convey. That, in a sense, and forgive me for breaking it down to such a crude term, is like negotiating with terrorists. We don't give in to their demands because then more terrorists do it. Now, I'm not saying we should be excluding these kids or what have you, but if they are out there killing themselves in record numbers, don't wait until their bodies are cold and in the ground to start looking at justice for these kids. So if you want to do something, there are plenty of local outreach groups, there are plenty of kids online. Just take a spin through Tumblr, a single scroll through, and you will find kids that need help, that need assistance. Your awareness, which is one of the topics today, is already clearly raised. We don't need activism to draw awareness to a problem that we already have. And these are two things that I wanted to talk about a bit today. Activism is extremely popular today. We get these major movements, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter in recent months, years. Both very noble causes at the start. Occupy Wall Street, hey, the banks are fucked up. They're taking money from us. They're putting us out on the streets with these insane mortgages and student loans. They're saddling us with debt. We have a problem. We need to bring awareness to it. Black Lives Matter. Hey, black people are being killed, you know, disproportionately to other races based on population in certain areas. We need to bring awareness to this. We need help to address a problem. At its core, fundamentally, both great movements. I fully agree, you know, the banks need to be reined in within, you know, accordance of guidelines. We can't have the rich completely oppressing the wealthy and removing freedom from people. That's fine, and you know, and that's a whole other discussion of capitalistic tendencies. For, you know, everybody does have the right to a hard day's work, an honest wage. Everybody has the right to get rich and run their organizations the way they see fit. Different topic for a different time. What I'm talking about specifically is these movements, at their core, distilled down, their original messages were very good. There's no really arguing with that. What happened, however, is with these activist groups, you get these people looking for their good guy badges, these SJWs, social justice warriors, who are tacking on and dog-earing these movements here. So you don't just have, you know, Occupy, you know, at the start, but then no, we've got to add on and atheism too. You gotta add atheism too, and then what about you know, the indigenous people movement? So we got to put them on here too, and the anarchists want to get in on it as well. So now you've got all these different groups vying for the same umbrella that the Occupy movement is under, and ultimately dragging down, tainting it, and making it so nobody, A, takes it seriously, and B, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about anymore. Nobody knows what the whole Occupy movement was for, except for a bunch of filthy hippies out playing hacky sack and doing drugs in local parks until the cops kicked them out. That's all we saw from it. We didn't see any change. We didn't see any tangible change, I should say. We didn't see a whole lot after that, except for an increase in, you know, militarization of the police. You see the same thing at Standing Rock. Black Lives Matter. At its core, the numbers are showing disproportionately to population, black folks are in trouble. They need some help. Their lives do matter. And then you get these other groups, these, you know, race-hating, hey, let's start the race war, you know, kill whitey groups, a lot of angry people voicing out and dog-earing themselves, adding on to what was at its core a very clear message, until it got so spread out and so disproportionately cattywampus that there was no message anymore. That's what I'm talking about here with these kids, the suicide awareness, things like that. Any movement, you have to be clear, you have to be concise, and you have to be direct. If you're there and you're protesting, are you protesting a message? Are you protesting a group? How are you going to protest? What is your goal? What do you intend to gain with your activism? It's not a bad thing in and of itself, but you have to be clear, you have to be concise, and the way you protest has to be conducive to people hearing your message. I am not a fan of Milo Yiannopoulos. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. However, he gets shut down on more college campuses than probably anybody else these days. And he is freaking loving it. It proves his message over and over and over again that these, you know, malformed, large, you know, baby children in these colleges are loud, obnoxious, bratty, and if they don't get their way, they cry and they take their toys and they go home. Every time they shut him down by yelling hate speech or, you know, the misogyny, these other coined terms that they like to use, every time they're using these, they're proving his point. And every time they get him shut down, they're fanning the flames, simply because he gets to stand up and say, I told you so. So you have to think about that. If you're going to be active, if you're going to be an activist, what is the goal of your activism? What are you trying to raise awareness for? And think of it this way. If you're raising awareness, if you want people to see it, are you doing it because you want people to see an injustice, an imbalance, because you need help correcting something? Or are you looking for a good guy badge? Are you trying to say, hey, I checked in on Facebook at Standing Rock because, you know, I support the people out there. I mean, I didn't want to take the time to go out, stand in the cold, and actually protest. But I checked in on Facebook, and everybody knows it, and everybody saw it, and so therefore, I'm part of the movement as well, guys. None of it actually affects me. I just want everybody to know that I stand with them. Hooray. Yippee skippy. Write them a check. Fly out there if it means so much to you. I can't argue that water is absolutely life. Oil pipelines are a thing of the Old West days. I can't believe that that's even still such a heavily relied on part of our infrastructure. The however is that I didn't go out and stand at Standing Rock because, well, quite frankly, it doesn't affect me directly. Not now, not yet, and it's certainly not enough for me to take time off from my day-to-day life to go do so. That hurts to hear people, and that may paint me as a callous asshole, but at the very least, I'm not, I never checked in, and I sure shit wouldn't go do something just to tell everybody that I did. I have actually made charitable donations this year, none of which you need to know about. I do work with volunteer communities and education things. There again, none of you need to know about. If you knew me on Facebook, you wouldn't know. A, you probably wouldn't care, and B, it's not for you that I'm doing it. It's for the causes in which I am being active. My activism is not your activism. Other people's activism is not your activism. That's fine. We don't always have to agree. That's why there is protest. That's why there is discourse. This country was founded on discourse. We didn't agree with something. We made a conflict of it, and we got results. That is how it works. If people don't agree with you, it's not a shut up and get out mentality. It's a, I understand you disagree, here's why I disagree. If we can't come to some reasonable discord, we're just going to go our separate ways and let bygones be bygones. That's the most civilized thing we can do in this society. But there again, we are founded in conflict, in blood, in discourse. That's why we have allegedly have a checks and balances system, is so that these things can be weighed one against another, and the heaviest will be found the most tangible and will be given the most weight. We are very close to such an insular mindset that if we don't get our way, as I said before, we take our toys, we go home, we cry about it online in our echo chambers and our bubbles where we're safe with everybody who agrees with us. And I'm talking about both sides doing it. The kids at the campuses crying hate speech whenever the Republicans come to town and going on Tumblr and crying to the other kids all crying are doing the exact same thing as the folks on the Breitbart forums saying, oh, you special snowflakes, they just need to nut up or shut up. We're all doing the same thing. We're all guilty of it. And that's, at the end of the day, that's fine. We don't all have to agree on one thing, but you have to make sure that if you're promoting something, if you don't agree with somebody else and you're taking a stance, you have to be clear, you have to be concise, and raising awareness, quite frankly, is a good start, but it's not enough. If you're aware of something, what is the next step? What do you do with that awareness? We're all looking to we all looked to the Occupy movement. What happened with it? It got so watered down and their message became so convoluted we stopped caring. We didn't listen anymore. Doesn't matter. The folks at Standing Rock, they raised their awareness. They had a clear and concise message. Water is life. They got the pipeline halted. They got fundraisers. They had veterans out there. Huge outcry of support, and people actually physically going and getting their message out there. They didn't have the atheists out there promoting atheism or social justice or the feminists or the Republicans or the Tea Party movement. It was for one specific goal. Everybody was active and everybody was participating in it. That is what you need to do if you're going to be active and promote activism and promote awareness. As I went back to at the beginning of this, we are aware of teen suicide, but at this point now, making a martyr of a dead girl is not going to change anything unless you get up and change it. Writing a check does not absolve you of your guilt, even though it feels better. Get up and do something then. If you feel strongly, get away from your keyboard. Get out there in the streets. Get active. Find your message. Find your voice. For the love of God, don't let it get bogged down by other, add-on groups and tack-on groups. And keep people civilized, engaged, and listening. That's the best we can do. At the end of the day, Voltaire, I believe, said it best. I may not agree with what you say, but I defend to the death your right to say it. If we can't at least agree on that, then all of this is for nothing. We are not making progress, we are not moving forward, and neither awareness, activism, or any amount of good guy badges is going to change that. So think about that. If you see a problem, if you see a need, fill a need. Make it happen. Work your lesser magic. Get active about it. And for the love of God, stop trying to promote it as Satanism. We all know there's other groups that are using Satanism to, provoke an opportunity. I could go off at length about that, but I am not even going to give them the time of day or attention that they think they deserve or they want. Long story short, find your voice. Find what you are passionate about. If you see somebody in need and you want to help them, you feel they're worthy of your help, then do it. I don't care to hear about it. Nobody else cares to hear about it. Do it for them. Do it for you. Don't do it for us. That's all I can say about it. Hail Satan.